A couple of years ago, I worked on a feature for online ordering application called Direct to Boot. The code was functional, it worked, but something didn't sit right. Each time I had to add a small change, I found myself holding my breath. What shouldn't have been a tiny tweak felt risky. It's when I knew it was time to refactor. Hey, I'm Juntao here. I want to walk you through how I took the tangled React component and make it cleaner, safer, and easier to maintain. We'll look at two very different styles of refactorings. One is tactic. We'll apply small moves that clean up the code. The other is strategic. The change will be bigger, the design level changes, and that will pay off over time. And in between, I will show you how this fit into my book, Maintainable React, which I just refreshed to make even more practical and beginner-friendly. Before we jump into the code directly, let me share some of the context. So the feature Direct to Boot is about a pickup option for any online ordering. So for example, you order a pizza online and then you want to pick it up on a car park which near to the store. So when you went in on the order to be processed, you will say something like, please click the button when you have arrived 1 hour from next step will bring the order to you. So then you wait on the car park or in your car, and when the order is in progress, it will grayed out, it's disabled. As soon as it's available, the button will turn to green, and then you can click the button, and that will send a signal to the store that notify the staff that you have arrived, and then they will bring the package to your car and then give it to you without contact. That is perfect for pandemic policies. So when you click the button, I'm here, it could be because of the network or system downtime, and the network call is failed. So we need a fallback screen to say we currently cannot get the notification through. So you have to call the store. It will give you the store number. So you can think of them, maybe have many branches. Each store will have a different number here. And if everything goes well, there is no further action needed. So you can see there's no button shows up here. So this is the feature. You can see there are many status here. So before the order is ready, it's like a preparing states. And when it's ready, there's a red status. And then if it's notified already, there will be a notified status. And if something went wrong, there will be a error status. So in the code, we have corresponding structure like handling all these different status. You can see the messages are different. The button action is corresponding to the status as well. And if we go to the code, it's something like this. So we have a component called Direct to Boot. It takes the order ID, and it will internally using the the React query, and it will have a function called fetch order status given any order, and initially the status will be initialized, and if it's not ready yet, we will keep polling until it's either ready or error. So this is how the React query works. So it basically defines a refetchable query. And we also have a mutation here. If you're not familiar with the React query, the mutation is basically a change to the server side. And you can think of that as a post RESTful API call. And if it's successful processed, we will have a notified status. Otherwise, it will be error. So basically, this is how the network part with React query. And then we have a relatively big component here. There's a function called getMessage based on status. If the status is ready, we will say, please click the button when you have arrived. If the error, we will say something went wrong, please call the number. And there is an initialized status, we'll say we're preparing your order, blah, blah, blah. And this notify was thanks for letting us know the order will be delivered right away. And we have a test here which covers most of the scenario. So we have 3 tests. The first one is when the button is enabled. So basically we direct the boot and we set up the network mocks, and then we are saying we are preparing your order. And the button is disabled by default. And we'll wait for a little bit longer until the button is enabled, because it will be like when network is resolved, the button is changed to enabled. And we also have, when something went wrong, there is another mode called error ID. And we have similar structure here. The button by default is disabled, and then there will be a arrow shows up. And in such case, the screen will have a phone number there instead, and so you can click and call the store. And finally, we have another test called notify the store, which is a scenario where you can success all the floors. So initially, we'll check the text to be please click the button when you arrived, and we will wait for the button to be enabled, and then we'll click the button, and then we'll see the text change to thanks for letting us know, and your order will be coming to you in a few minutes. So this is all the critical tests we have. It's basically covered all the scenarios we want to cover. That's good. So as always, before you do any refactoring, make sure you have enough coverage, or at least the critical business paths to be covered in the test. I have them running in a terminal, so you can see that before we make any change, we have 3 tests, and you can see they all passing like so. And then we can safely do the refactoring. So as you can see, the initial version worked fine. Like many first draft, it grows messy over time. There are too many logic in one component. Polling behavior mixed with UI rendering, difficult to modify. This is where Refactor comes in. Not to make it clever, but to make it easier to understand and safer to change further. So we can do some small change first with the test. So firstly, I think get message is very pure function. It only depends on the status, and it can give you a message. So we can move the get message out of this React component. We can simply just copy or just drag it on the top of the file, or even we can create another utility JS and move this get message into that utility function. That's something we can do. And also we can make it more meaningful by giving it a better name, like get what do you call that, message by status. And yeah, it will, based on the status, give you a correct message. And also we probably can do something on the test side as well. So for example, the screen that get by text is not really as popular. So we probably need to consider the accessibility of our test. So we can modify this as something like screen.get by row, and we want to get the by heading, and the name will be something like this one. And also we want to not actually assert it to be in the document, but we will make sure it's being visible. The difference is that being in a document means it could be anywhere. Maybe it's in a hidden place or out of screen. So we want to make sure that it's also visible to the user. Similarly, for the button here, we can assert the button, the name is something like I'm here. And then we need to run the test again to see if they are all passing. That's good. And yes, we will make sure the button is, this one is to be visible, and this one to be visible as well. and also it's disabled by default, and then it will be enabled in 5 seconds. And we can do the further refactoring to make these tests all align with the accessibility requirement. But for now, let's leave it here. And if we go back to the direct boot component, there is one big chunk of if-else kind of thing here, which can be refactored to a function that take the status as input and give you a component as output. We can move this logic into a function called get component or get view by status. That will be a normal move. Let's say get view by status, and it takes the status as a input, which is a status type, and it will switch the status, and based on the case, it will. How can I just do that more quickly? If it's initially sorry, let me copy the initial button over. So for such case, we'll return this UI, and if the case is ready, we can return the ready UI, which is the button that I'm here, and then we will call the mutation with all the ID, but we'll address this later. And then the case is arrow. For arrow case, we will return something else, which will be a link. Okay. And by default, we are going to return undefined. So in React, it will render nothing. And yeah, we have left something here, so we will call it onClick, which will be a function, and then in here we will call the onClick, like so. And then we'll get view by status in here, get view by status, and then we'll pass in the status and a function that does the mutation, mutate the order ID, and then we can get rid of these structures here. And the test should still passing. And if we go to the page, let's do a refresh. You can see that it's initially the button is grayed out, it's disabled, and we are preparing your order. After a few seconds, when the backend is prepared, it says, okay, you can click the button now. So if we click the button, it will say thanks for letting us know the order is being will be there in a minute. So this is a happy pass. That's good. It's still working, and we can see that the direct boot is shorter, and we can easily test the get message by status and get view by status. And we can also do a further refactoring to move this file out into a separate file. Let's say we move that to utils, and this doesn't have any TSX, so we can call it TS. And even this one we can move it to outside. And this is the very first attempt. It looks fine. We have shorter component. We have logic separated into a separate file. And if we have any further changes, we probably will go to the get view by status or the get message by status and make a change over there. Well, it is okay, but I think we can do better. The next refactor is a bit more involved, and it's the kind of thing I really focused on in my book, Maintainable React. Well, the earlier cleanup was more tactical. The next one is more strategic, reflecting how the component is structured using design patterns to make it easier to maintain in the long run. I first published a book in 2022 on LinPub. But recently I give it a full refresh, simpler examples, better structures, and more emphasis in the real-world trade-offs. I will drop a link below if you want to check it out. But for now, let's keep going. All right, I will check out the initial version. So let's check out that to what it was before. So now we are in an old status here. So if we look at the status in here, we have 4 of them: initialized, ready, notified, and error. And we have kind of 2 switch cases for each status here. When the ready, the message is like so. When it's error, message is like that. And also we have a switch case, kind of switch case here, down below. With the initialize, we return something like a primary button disabled. When it's not, it's ready, we will make it clickable. It's error, we show something. And if it's notified, we show nothing. So basically there is a missing part here. Like when it's notified, we basically saying do nothing. So if we change that, you can see that clearly. It's just another form of switch case. So because of the change for status and UI will always be together, it will be even better if we can have a component that responsible for each status. For example, we could have a initialized component that is responsible for the initialized status, which will have the message right, we will have button correct, and also has a status correct. And similarly, we could have a ready component that responsible for the message and also the readiness button. So that way we can basically we isolate all the logic and view into a separate place, that only when the status changed we can modify this component. And then we don't have 2 places to have this kind of duplicated logic. So let's do that. We can define a component called initialized view, and it will be something like this one. We can copy over because the direct to boot is always the same, but the paragraph here and the div for the button will different. So we'll copy this over, and we will return a fragment. And instead of doing the dynamic get message, we will make it a static for the initial view only. That means we will make we are preparing your order over here. That will be a static text. And also we will not have these things anymore. And it's only have a button that is disabled. So this is the initialized view. And correspondingly, we could have other view for each type. So let's say we have a ready view. Let's do that. So when it's ready, we will see this message in here. So let's do that. And also when it's ready, the button is different. It will be a enabled one that has a click in it. So let's do the onClick. We will address this later, but let's just do a onClick. OnClick is a function, and we will call the function here in the when the button is clicked. So this is a ready view, and we will have another one is notified view, yeah, we are, and it will be similar to this one. and there is no button for the notified, right? So we'll have a nothing in here. So get rid of this button container thing, and for notified, the message is thanks for letting us know, and we'll just copy and paste. So notify view is like so, and then finally we will have the arrow view, which is a link. So we'll just copy this over, and the arrow is something went wrong, and the button is not a button, it's a link. So you can call this number like so. So now we defined 4 separate views, and we will need a function that can take a status and return a view. So let's do that by saying, we can define a function called get view by status, and it takes a status, and it's a status type, and then it will be a switch case here. We are switching the status, and we can do this initialize, return initialized view, and if it's ready, we return ready. For the onClick, we will address that very soon. And for arrow or notified, we return notified, and finally the arrow, we will return the arrow view. Also the default one surely will be return undefined. Undefined. And we will need the onClick to be passed on here. So we do onClick is a empty function, and we pass it along like so. And then in the direct boot, we can use this function by saying, all right, so the whole fragment will be inserted here. Get the view by status, the status, and mutation, the mutate by the order ID, which is just like before. Also, it'll be a function, so passing as an anonymous function. And once we have that, we don't need this whole block. And also, the get message is invalid because it's already embedded to the component, the individual component. So this way, we have a few smaller components, and each are responding to a status. So it's much cleaner now, and it has a single place to modify if we want to change a particular status. And also we can check the UI is still working. So when you loading, it's disabled, and we're preparing. And when it's ready, you can click, and it will notify the store. And we can check the test are all passing as before. And yeah, that's great. So we can do some more refactorings, like move this into its own function. We can move this into its own file as well. And the notified view is its own JSX, and arrow view will be its own JSX as well. So we have a bunch of smaller components, and we probably can, create another folder called components or something like that, and we can move this right into the components. We can have a smaller but nicer design now. So the direct boot is handling the data fetching, and then it will gather view by status. Yeah, that's pretty much about another way of refactoring. So why does this matter? In small projects, messing code isn't a problem until you need to add new features, handle edge cases, or refine the current code base in some way, onboarding new team members. And that's when small refactors pay off. If this kind of thinking resonates with you, there's more like it in Maintainable React. I rewrote most of it recently and make it more beginner-friendly, but still useful for senior developers deal with complex components projects. You will find refactoring patterns with real-world examples, testing strategies, and a few more design principles that you can apply to your code directly. Links below if you're interested. I hope the walkthrough gives you a few useful ideas to tweak back to your own code base. If you like this, I have got more videos and articles coming that dive in deeper into React refactoring and design techniques. Thanks for watching and see you next time.